talk about the parts of the banjo and how they function. That way, going forward when I'm teaching, you'll understand exactly what I'm saying when I'm referring to a specific area of the banjo. So let's start off by looking at the two main parts of the banjo. We have the banjo neck, which is right here, and then we have the banjo pot, which is this round section that produces all of the sound. Let's take a closer look at the banjo neck. I'm teaching about the 5-string banjo, not the 4-string. So we have the 1st string right here, the 2nd string, the 3rd string, the 4th string, and the 5th string. And you notice that these metal strings are connected to these shafts, which we call tuners. And these tuners move the strings either up or down, tighter or less, for a higher or lower pitch. Your banjo tuners are connected to your banjo headstock. Your banjo headstock is just a platform to hold your banjo tuners. After that, you get to your banjo nut. Your banjo nut's usually made out of bone or ebony or rosewood. And its primary job is just to hold the spacing of the strings, so you have even spacing, and to act as a starting point or a ramp for your fretboard. So your fretboard is all the way from your nut to your pot. This whole area, that's your fingerboard or fretboard. It's usually made out of ebony, but sometimes rosewood or other hardwoods. On your fingerboard or fretboard, you have these metal bars going all the way down. These are called frets. What it's doing is it's changing the length of the string when you press down on different parts. And it changes it so it changes the sound because you're changing that length that the string vibrates. So here's something important to remember. If I ask you to put a finger on the 1st fret, I'm not asking you to put a finger on this metal bar. I'm asking you to put your finger right behind that 1st bar. So it's going to be in between the banjo nut and the 1st fret. So it's going to be in between. If I ask you to put a finger on the 2nd fret, it's going to be in between the 2nd fret and 1st fret. So what we have is your 1st fret, 2nd fret, 3rd fret, 4th fret, 5th fret, 6th fret, 7th fret, and so on and so forth. It keeps going up. Let's talk about banjo strings. We have your 1st string down here, your 2nd string, 3rd string, 4th string, which is your lowest, and 5th string, which is weirdly your highest. A lot of people don't think when they first start that the 1st string is actually down here. They think that the 1st string is up here because, you know, you're naturally looking down and you see, oh, well, that's the 1st string I see. But it's the opposite of that. It's down here. This is your 1st going up to your 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. The other confusing thing is you usually think of your 1st string as being the highest string, you know, and then it goes lower. But actually, when you get to the 5th string, it's actually higher than your 1st string. And it's a drone note. It's kind of weird, but we'll get into that later. Let's put two things together. If I asked you to put a finger on the 1st string, 2nd fret, what you'll do is you'll find your 1st string down here, and then you'll find your 2nd fret. So 1, 2. If I said 1st string, 4th fret, you go 1st string, 1, 2, 3, 4. If I said 3rd string, 2nd fret, you'd count up to your 3rd string, 1, 2, 3, and go to your 2nd fret, 1, 2. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. 4th string, 4th fret, you go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. There are many ways to learn the banjo. Me saying put a finger on the 3rd string, 2nd fret is just one way of me communicating where to put your fingers. And that can be hard because you're counting for each part of it and it's slow going. But there's also this visual aspect. You can see that my finger is on the 1st string, 2nd fret. Or maybe it's the 1st string, 1st fret. Or 1st string, 5th. So it doesn't just have to be numbers. You can visually see what I'm doing. And I also make a sound. you'll hear that, am I matching that same note that he's matching? So there's a lot of ways to pick up the melody. Also, it may be slow at first, but after about your fourth or fifth song, things start moving faster because banjo has a lot of repetition. And I'm going to be repeating the same phrases and shapes over and over and over. And each lesson builds off of the last. So after a while, you'll go, I've made that shape before, I've made that sound, I know exactly where that's at. It takes time, but you'll get there, and it becomes a lot of fun real quick. Let's keep talking about the parts of the banjo. Most banjos have position markers. This banjo has little round dots on the fingerboard made out of shell inlaid in, and it tells me where I'm at on the fingerboard. So it tells me that this is the 5th fret, 7th, 10th, 12th, and 15th. And later on, when you're up the neck, it'll let you know where you're at. Also, a lot of banjos have little dots on the side of the banjo, and they match the dots on the front of the banjo. So this one has brass dots. It's kind of hard to see. Most banjos have white dots, but they come in all different shapes and sizes. You have a banjo nut here made out of bone or ebony, but you also have one for the 5th string right here. We call this the banjo pip or the 5th string nut. Some banjos don't have this, and they have a railroad spike, which is a little tiny spike that the string runs under that holds it down. But this one has a banjo 5th string bone nut. One last part of the banjo neck to cover before we move on to the banjo pot. The banjo scoop. Not all banjos have this. It's an optional thing, but it's awfully convenient. It's this section right here on this banjo fretboard. See how it's scooped out, and the frets, they don't continue on. They stop right here. And this is so I can play over the neck. I like to play right here sometimes. And if these frets kept going, I couldn't play right here. They get in the way. So it's decorative, but it also allows me to play over the neck. Where you strum changes the sound. So if you play back here, it's very bright. And the farther up you go, the warmer it is. So most people play around here, and some people like to play around here as well. So it gives you that option. Let's talk about the round section of your banjo called the banjo pot. So you have these banjo strings that run across to this banjo bridge. And what's happening is the strings are vibrating, and those vibrations go through this banjo bridge to this banjo head. So this bridge is working to transfer sound to this banjo head. And the banjo head then moves up and down like a speaker cone and compresses air, and it comes to your ears. So the banjo bridge is usually made out of maple and ebony. This one's maple and rosewood. It's movable, and it's important to talk about this because sometimes they get knocked off. See, I can move it. And when it gets knocked off, it sounds awful up the neck. It changes everything. So you want to make sure that this banjo bridge is in the right spot. I have drawn lines where my banjo bridge should go. So if it ever gets knocked off, I can move this banjo bridge right back to where it goes. And suddenly, it sounds good up the neck again. If your bridge is in the wrong spot, don't worry. I have a banjo setup lesson video that will help you figure out where to set your bridge for correct intonation. Or you could take your banjo to a local luthier or music store and have them help you set it in the right spot and mark pencil lines. Back to the parts of the banjo. So you have your banjo head, which can be made out of many different materials. So if it doesn't look like mine, don't worry. You have your tension hoop, which is this brass round hoop that's pulling down the head. Sometimes it's nickel plated or gold plated, but mine's brass. You have these hooks right here, And these hooks, these banjo hooks, pull down this banjo hoop. And you have the nut, which you tighten to pull down these banjo hooks. You have the banjo shoes, which the hooks go through, and they're anchored in by these bolts. This one has 18, some have 24, some banjos have 16 hooks, so they all come in different shapes and sizes. If I flip my banjo around, you get to your banjo rim, which the banjo rim is this round wooden part of the banjo. Most banjos have a tone ring. The tone ring sits on top of the wooden rim and acts as a hard surface for the head to vibrate against. Most banjos have a tone ring made out of brass, but other banjos, such as this one, have a wooden tone ring. This banjo has a banjo dowel rod. The dowel rod is this section right here. It's very traditional. Some banjos have metal rods, coordinator rods, but this one has a dowel rod. Your dowel rod goes through your banjo rim and connects to your banjo neck. You have this neck brace that pulls the neck and the banjo pot together real tight, and it's right here. If I loosen this bolt, the neck would come off the banjo. One last part of the banjo pot to cover before we're finished, the banjo tailpiece. The banjo tailpiece connects the strings to the banjo pot. The tailpiece can come in many different shapes and sizes, so don't worry. If you look close at your banjo tailpiece, it has these little ball ends, and the loop end of the string goes over it and holds the string to the banjo. Now you know the parts of your banjo.